Attacks against the media pose a threat to democracy. This according to Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau.
One of the institutions that is most under stress right now is a free, independent, free-thinking, independent, rigorous, robust, respected media.
That's what Justin Trudeau said during a Remembrance Day news conference with other Western leaders in France. He discussed the important role of a free press in informing citizens and ensuring a well-educated, well-informed populace. And he stated vaguely that these institutions are under attack without really spelling out how or why. Now, I don't say this very often, but on this matter, the Prime Minister is right. A rigorous and independent media is vital to our free society. The only problem is that Canada's media is far from free-thinking, independent, robust, rigorous, or respected. Canada's media is deeply corrupted. Let me explain why. Now, everyone knows that most members of the mainstream media are part of an exclusive club of left-leaning urban elites who live in downtown Toronto, Ottawa, or Montreal. They have a very narrow worldview. Frankly, they don't understand the values or concerns of most everyday Canadians. Worse than their own personal biases, which most of them are completely oblivious about, there is ample evidence that the companies these journalists work for are themselves neither independent nor free. Take the recent political campaign launched by Unifor National President Jerry Diaz. "We will stop sheer stupidity," wrote Diaz on Twitter, mentioning Conservative leader Andrew Scheer and unveiling Unifor's new anti-conservative political campaign called The Resistance. This private sector union is taking it upon itself to launch a major campaign to discredit and to attack a political party in Canada, using the forced dues collected from its members. Now, unions waging campaigns against Conservatives is nothing new. The previous federal Conservative government had introduced a law that required financial transparency for unions. These unions hated that law, and so they worked hard to help elect Justin Trudeau and the Liberals. Trudeau and the Liberals then scrapped that financial transparency law immediately after being elected. This type of quid pro quo happens all the time. It's become common in Canadian politics. The problem with this new Unifor campaign is that the union represents thousands of Canadian journalists, including many of my own colleagues at the Sun newspapers. I should note that I am not a member of a union. But according to its website, Unifor is Canada's largest media union, representing over 13,000 workers from coast to coast in printing, graphic arts, newspaper, film, and broadcasting. 13,000 Canadian journalists pay money to this union. And that money, in part, is going to fight a political campaign. Now, I don't blame journalists for joining a union. Look, it's a tough market out there. Everyone knows traditional media outlets are dying, they're slowly shedding jobs, and a lot of people are out of work. But how do Canadian journalists claim to be neutral and unbiased when their own union is openly waging a campaign against a major political party? It's an obvious conflict of interest. It undermines public trust in the independence of those Unifor journalists. Now, it isn't just private sector journalists who suffer from a lack of credibility. Canada's state broadcaster is even more conflicted. During the last federal election campaign, funding to the CBC became a major political issue. Every major political party addressed CBC funding in its election platform. The Conservative government cut the CBC's budget by $115 million. The Socialist New Democrat Party pledged to reverse these cuts, while the Liberals went the furthest. They pledged to not only reverse the cuts, but also to give the CBC an additional $150 million in funding. Lo and behold, with $265 million on the line, the Trudeau Liberals received glowing coverage from the CBC, which helped them win the election.
Our senior correspondents, Adrian Arsenault and Susan Ormiston, have been watching the debate with a critical eye and critical ear, and they're going to drill down into some of what the leaders told you tonight.
The Liberals now say they'll really boost it, $125 billion over the next 10 years compared to the Conservatives' $80 billion. But here's the crutch. The Liberals will go into 3 years of deficits to pay for it. And the New Democrats and Conservatives mock Trudeau for that. But economists we've spoken to say modest deficits for infrastructure could be defendable. It's still a hot debate, Peter.
A cynic may call this a bribe, a very large and very public bribe using our money, taxpayer dollars. According to the media in Canada, however, it was fair game for the Trudeau Liberals. The problem with our media is far worse than a mere bias from the left-leaning journalists who cover the news. Increasingly, media outlets themselves are the ones that are corrupted by meddling politicians. And it gets even worse. The Liberals are now seeking to expand government's influence over journalists. They are offering a taxpayer-funded slush fund to dole out to more failing media companies. How can journalists remain independent when they're the beneficiaries of government handouts? Can they really be trusted to scrutinize the politicians who fund them? And really, will they remain independent? Will they remain unbiased if another politician down the road threatens to end their funding? How can we claim to have a free press in Canada when so much public cash is doled out to journalists, and while other journalists are part of a massive union that openly hates conservatives? Like Justin Trudeau said, a free and independent press is vital to a democracy. Unfortunately for Canadians, our media institutions are already corrupted, and journalists who work for those companies are failing to provide the full story. For the True North Initiative, I'm Candice Malcolm.